Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a makeup look inspired by Juliette Cai from the These Violent Delights duology by Chloe Gong, and I'm going to be talking about Our Violent Ends, which is the second book. I just finished this book last night at 3 a.m. so I'm tired, but it's kind of still fresh in my mind, so I wanted to do a little bit of makeup. I'm wearing my Qipao here, the only one that I own that still fits me. And I'm just going to be doing a little bit of a makeup not tutorial. I'm just going to do makeup and talk about the book. Well, actually, I skipped a few steps so I wouldn't have to do as much, but I did my eyebrows with the Wet n Wild micro brow pencil. I don't know what shade this is, but it's just a brow pencil. And then I did concealer with the Bare Minerals Bare Skin Concealer in Light. That's my base. I'm going to put on this Burt's Bees lip balm because it helps keeping them soft while I do the rest of my makeup. So if you do not know what Our Violent Ends or These Violent Delights is about, then let me run it down for you really quick. These Violent Delights is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920s Shanghai, where you have two rival gangs that are in a blood feud together. You have the Scarlets and you have the White Flowers, and then you have the two heirs to those respective gangs, Roma and Juliet. They are former lovers, then they became enemies because of the blood feud, and then enemies to lovers again. But then you follow them as they try to take down this paranormal monster that's kind of roaming the streets and making everyone claw their throats out. So that's the fun part of it. The first thing I'm gonna do is the eyeshadow part of it. I'm just gonna use the Makeup Revolution Ultimate Nudes Dark Shadow Palette. So I'm just taking the lightest shade, this one. I originally got Our Violent Ends like back in November when it first came out because I knew that it was coming out and I really wanted to read it because I loved These Violent Delights. I talked about it in class once and I read a passage from it and talked about why I liked it so much. But yeah, I've wanted to read this for a very long time because I knew with the ending of Romeo and Juliet, because it's a classic ending, that's what makes it a tragic love story. I wanted to see how Chloe Gong would do her own twist on it. That's something that you go into this book knowing already. Like, you know that even though it does like go very off the edges of like what Romeo and Juliet is with the monster, you still know that it's gonna follow the big plot points, such as them both dying at the end. So it's not a spoiler, it's just what comes with a Romeo and Juliet retelling. So I went into it knowing that, and I was not looking forward to Romeo and Juliet dying because I really do like both of their characters. Like, usually sometimes I will not care for one of the two main characters if there are multiple. Like, there's just one that I just don't feel attached to, but Romeo and Juliet both just come off as compelling characters, and I love reading their points of view. I'm gonna do the middle shade, which is like this dark pink. Actually, no, I'm gonna do the one that's below it. I can say without any actual spoilers that this was my favorite out of the duology. I did like this one more. I think it's because it got like all this action built up from the last book, and now they have to deal with it in order to conclude the story. And because I read it in such a way where I was always tired when I read it because I have school obviously, and I was trying to read it alongside that and also get some sleep, so it did take me longer than it probably would have to read this book. But I don't mind the long wait. I just felt weird about it because I felt like I should be going through it faster because there's so much to digest. But I stayed up, I committed to it. What can I say about it that's not spoilery? Because this is spoilery for These Violent Delights because that's the first book and you're missing like a ton of stuff that happens. There were some things I didn't remember from the last book and I had to kind of like remind myself of that. And also keep in mind that there's a story coming out called Foul Lady Fortune, which is a little spin-off series. I don't know if it's a standalone or series, but it follows another character. There was a character that I forgot about during this whole ordeal, and it was Tyler. He is Juliette's cousin who everyone in her family kind of like gravitates towards because he's so in it for the justice of the Scarlet Gang, but he's more just like a violent type of person. He ends up just ordering people around to just go kill and not really save anyone or do anything just because he's a good person. Like, he's just brutal. Juliet really doesn't want him to take over the gang. Like, she wants to be the actual heir, the one who takes over the throne. So I kind of forgot about him being a problem, but I actually kind of liked his character. Not in a way that like I support what he's doing because I don't, because he's misogynistic. But I like Tyler's way of, he's really just focused on being loyal to the Scarlet Gang. This is where we get into spoiler territory, so that's why I don't want to say anything. But I just think that that's a really interesting quality, is that someone is a bad person, but they're so dedicated to their cause that they don't believe that they're the bad person in that situation. They just think they're doing what needs to be done. So I did this, whatever this is. I usually don't do my eyeshadow this dark. Next I'm gonna do this Essence eyeliner, and it's in the color Hot Chocolate, which, by the way, I have Hot Chocolate with me. It's a bit watered down though. And then you also have Benedict and Marshall, who are both white flowers. They're on Roma's side, and they're his like best friends. They also got something going on, and they are so cute together. Basically, one of them is rumored to be dead, but he's not, and the other person, who is still known to be alive, does not know that he is alive. So he's just living his life in misery because he thinks that his best friend slash crush has died and he never got the chance to confess. You get to see their relationship as their paths separate, but it is just so interesting to see how long they've been like wanting each other, and it's they're in competition for my favorite couple, because there are only two main couples in this book, but I love Benedict and Marshall. Oh yeah, it's like the sunshine grumpy trope with them, so that's why I like them. I do like that trope a lot. This is really weird. I'm basically trying to build a thick line so that I can smudge it out. Coincidentally, we're reading The Great Gatsby in class, and we're in the 1920s in this book, so I think I'm following the timeline of the world pretty well. And this is very accurate. I think, well, it's not completely accurate because you have to make way for characters that don't exist and gangs that don't exist, like the Scarlet and the White Flower Gang. But Chloe Gong really likes to add in the real world politics that were going on at the time. It's not 100% accurate, of course, but it is somewhat educational in that fact, and I appreciate it. I think it adds like some flavor to the conflict because it's real, and this actually somewhat happened, and it's based on real events in the 1920s. Just gonna smudge that out. Glitter time. I'm gonna be using the ColourPop Super Shock shadow in Ladybird. This one's completely messed up. If I turn it upside down like a blizzard, it will definitely fall. And then, of course, like, you can't forget the monster part of this. I do remember at the end of These Violent Delights that Paul Dexter, who is now dead, he sent out this note that saying, like, when I die, release all of the insects that were making people rip out their throats. But it starts to build, and then there's suddenly like this dude that is disguised as a regular guy, and then all of a sudden transforms into a monster, and then, you know, does the whole insect thing. The gore in this book, it's descriptive, but it's not like what adult gore might be. I don't know if I should say it needs a trigger warning or anything. Just be cautious in this book because there are like descriptions of the gore of what happens to people who are infected by the bugs. I know that was like a shock to me, but at the same time I read Warriors where they had like unexpected gore in that too. Definitely wasn't necessary for the description, but oh yeah, Roma and Juliette's like, you know, back and forth where they have to work together, but also they still hate each other because Roma thinks Juliette killed one of his men, which she didn't. But that was so frustrating to go through because they love each other so much, but they hate each other so much. Roma is so set on actually killing her, like he's not gonna hold back like he's going to. There's always that little moment of hesitation because they love each other and they could never bear to do it. It gives a lot of Icarus and Circe vibes. But I was rooting for all the couples, both of the couples, the entire time because I just want them to get together and be happy. And of course that's not 100% guaranteed in this book, but it is just really tugs at your heartstrings. Next, I'm just gonna do highlight for my nose. I'm gonna use this e.l.f. highlighter. It's liquid, it has vitamin E in it, so it's healthy. To shake it up. I've had this for a really long time. It's probably not that good, and I don't think I've seen it in stores, so maybe they discontinued it. Let's talk about the tragic death that does follow them, because I think I'm still a little bit lost on what the purpose was of them dying, because in Romeo and Juliet they have reasons to just kind of like fake death or actually die once they think the other one's dead. For this one, it's just I don't really get the motive behind it, and maybe I need to reread the last part because I think I was like half asleep. But first I gotta line my lips, and I wanted to do like what I saw was a 1920s thing. I could be wrong. I'm just looking at YouTube tutorials and going along with it, but I'm going to do a little bit of lip lining with the LA Girl Ultimate lip liner. This is in the shade Keep It Spicy. That's as much as I can do. It doesn't look that good. Now I'm finally using the Sephora. It's like a matte lipstick and it's in the shade 42. It doesn't have a name. I was thinking of going for like bright red, but at the same time I saw that it was more common in the 1920s for darker reds, so I'm just gonna go with that. Oh, and I just realized, wait, well, first I haven't talked about the death. I just realized that the cover of the book hints at what their death is gonna end up being by... No, I don't like this one. I'm gonna read it. So Romeo and Juliet basically set the vaccine or like the cure for the illness. They set it on fire because it's really flammable. It bursts into flames and then they just die. I don't really get what their like reasoning was. I think it was just because they were so tied to the city and their roots and the fact that they are heirs to gangs. Everything's just going crazy and no one's gonna win in this situation on their side of it. Like all the gangs are just being consumed by the nationalists storming the cities and taking over. I think that's why. I think I just answered my own question. This is an Ulta lipstick and it's kind of the same formula. It's in the shade Devotion. But I think in general, the way that the story ended and now that it's going to continue on in Foul Lady Fortune, I think it was a good solid ending and all the action really built up to them just being like, we can't do this, but we're gonna die together and we're always gonna be together. And I think their story was just, it was so nice. And I do want a book to TV or movie adaptation of their story. I wonder what the monster would end up looking like, because in my head I don't really imagine anything when the monster appears. All I really get from the description is that it's blue and green and it's a big monster. With a little help of CGI, it could be good. I'm not sure about Netflix doing it, but I think it would actually look kind of cool. You get a really nice Asian cast and you get good actors and actresses, and then you get this scene set up for the 1920s in Shanghai. I would love to see an adaptation of it because a lot of these scenes in this book are super cinematic and they really feel like you're immersed and watching it unfold, and that's how good Chloe Gong's writing is. That's the conclusion of everything, is that Chloe Gong's writing is so good. But this is the finished look. Read Our Violent Ends if you've already read These Violent Delights, but if you haven't read These Violent Delights, then please read it because I think it will be worth your time and you will love it just as much as I did. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.